All right, so that, of course, is what the situation at this moment on the ground is. Israeli forces have mobilized more than 360,000 Israeli soldiers for a potential ground incursion at this moment. The IDF, remember, has ordered through an ultimatum that all Palestinians in Gaza must flee from the northern part of Gaza. The evacuations are already underway. Residents in the city of Sedrot on the other side of the border within Israel are being moved to places such as Eilat and Jerusalem, and many could even be moved to Tel Aviv, because as soon as the Israeli troops move in, there is an expected fire, rocket fire from Hamas. According to reports, there are an estimated 7,000 households that are located in the area. The move has come on the back of the massive military deployment in southern Israel. The Israeli Defense Forces have announced that they will not target the corridor that is being used by the Gazan residents who are currently being evacuated and moved to the south for their safety. This is what the Israelis claim, but Hamas says that Israel has continued to target even those who are trying to flee from northern part of Gaza, because at this moment, remember, the air raid over the Gazan Strip has been carried out not just in the northern part of Gaza, but even in the southern part of Gaza, and there's virtually no place in the Gaza Strip that at this moment is safe. Now, the Israeli Defense Forces spokesperson has said, and I quote him here, the IDF will refrain from targeting the designated axis from 10 a.m. till 1 p.m. local time. This so that the Gazan residents have enough time to flee to safer areas. But as we said, there is no place in this tiny strip of land of Gaza that is safe. Now, IDF is, of course, planning for a large-scale ground offensive. The visuals that you're looking at on your screens are of these Israeli troops who are ready ahead of this massive assault that they want once the incursion into Gaza Strip begins. Now, Israel has said that it is attacking the Palestinian territory of Gaza from land, air and sea. For this, it's been backed completely by the Americans, who've been sending more and more top-notch weapons to the Israelis to be used in this conflict against Gaza. All right, now to give us more insights at this moment in terms of what is happening in this conflict, we're being joined by Mr. Uriel-Abelov, who's an associate professor of political science, joining from the Tel Aviv University. He's joining us live on this broadcast. Now, Professor, what is happening at this moment is heart-rending. You know, in this war that has broken out, an estimated 1,300 Israelis have been killed. And on the other side, in the Gaza Strip, more than 2,300 Palestinians have been killed. And now the expectation is that the Israelis have said that they'll carry out a ground incursion into the Gaza Strip, which will result in more loss of lives. What are you picking up there? When can this conflict potentially end?
This can last weeks, potentially months. And if it escalates, perhaps even beyond that, the number of casualties right now may be a tiny fraction of what is still to come. So a lot depends on, of course, both Israel and the Hamas, but also on regional actors and the international sector. Very much, of course, depends on whether or not there will be a second front that is something more substantial than there already is.
Right.
Up in the north and potentially even the West Bank.
Mr. Abelov, I'll come to, will there be another front of war that will open up? But I want to just point out to our viewers that the top Hamas commander who said to have carried out this attack that took place in Israel last week has in fact been killed. Now, this is what the state of Israel had been going after. It was going after Hamas, and the top commander who carried out this attack has now been killed. Do you expect that once the top Hamas leadership is taken out, that there could be some room for negotiations here? Because while Israel is conducting this military operation, there is a humanitarian disaster that is unfolding at this moment in the Gaza Strip.
Right. The main correction that I would make as to what you previously said in the introduction was that Israel's war, as far as Israel is concerned, is not against Gaza or against the Palestinians in Gaza, but against the Hamas. So the question becomes, what is good enough? If the leadership is out, is that good enough? Because there will still be about 40,000 Hamas fighters on the ground. And that is, to a large extent, up to the war agenda of Israel itself, and much depends on the international legitimacy of the move. I think that overall, the objective of Israel is that there will be no Hamas rulership. in either the West Bank or the Gaza Strip. And to do so, the Hamas itself should be dismantled, at least as a military organization.
You know, this moment, this is a war that is being watched around the world, and people are looking at, what is happening on both sides of the border, the atrocities that were committed in the state of Israel. Everyone is condemned on. But now there are also questions that are being raised about the atrocities being committed on the Gaza Strip. At this moment, as we speak, there are 2.3 million people who are living in complete darkness. They've been denied access to food, fuel, water. This is tantamount to a war crime, is what is being said. How does Israel respond to this charge?
I think that at this moment, those elements of collateral damage, right, the way that it is usually phrased in a legal setting, and collective punishment are highly problematic. The former is allowable to a certain extent, right? The main question is proportion and not targeting civilians. I think Israel was careful so far, at least, not to deliberately target civilians, but it has become increasingly part of the collateral damage, much more than in previous rounds. The second aspect, of course, is that of collective punishment. I think Israel should be very careful not to engage in any sort of collective punishment, not to engage in any sort of revenge. The main target should be, and it is, in my mind at least, a very justified target, to do away with the Hamas, at least in its military wing. Although, in order to do so, to the military actions, which are very much warranted, it cannot be done without the military action. Right. It should also be a political engagement, not with the Hamas, but with other actors, within Palestine and without.
Now, at this moment, Professor, what is the mood like within the state of Israel? Now, it's important that those who carried out the attack on the people inside the state of Israel, they're brought to justice. There is accountability for it. But as the death toll of these innocent civilians continues to rise, as the images of young children, infants and babies who are being pulled out from underneath the rubble of the buildings that have collapsed because of the Israeli air raids, as these images are being beamed across the world, the public sentiment is getting stronger. And many people are saying that what Israel is now doing is going well beyond Israel's right to defend itself. This is no more a defense. This is vengeance that is being wreaked upon the people in the Gaza Strip. So what is the Israeli public opinion on this issue, considering that this is a war that is being broadcast across the world as it is happening?
Right. Look, it's very hard to tell anything in such generalized terms. Of course, each and every one of Israeli citizens have taken one's own individual course in mourning what has happened just a bit over a week ago. Everyone are heartbroken, I think. But how you deal with that mourning is very different. Some do call for vengeance. Others are seeking ways of rapprochement, not with the Hamas. I think no one hardly thinks that the Hamas, who is really akin to an organization like ISIS, can be negotiated with.
Right.
The key question is, to what extent can we find other moderates within the Palestinians, within the Arab world, with whom Israel can negotiate some sort of coexistence, if not peace, which seems at the moment as a complete utopia.
I'm pretty sure, Professor, I'm pretty sure, once this conflict ends, but the Palestinian question will have to be addressed by the state of Israel. Now, the grievance that the Palestinian people have been expressing is that they simply have not been given the rights that are due to them. That Israel resorts to more and more land grab at every single opportunity, and this is the heart of the crisis. Does Israel want to address the Palestinian question?
I think that's an excellent question, and it goes back to the context of this conflict, and I think it is an important context. Look, in 2005, Israel enacted what is referred to as the disengagement plan. Since 2005, there are no soldiers and there are no settlers in the Gaza Strip. What is taking place ever since then is the Hamas taking over the Gaza Strip by force. It was a coup. And using the Gaza Strip, which was effectively without soldiers, without settlers, not in order to rebuild a viable Palestinian society, and potentially a state in the making, but in order to launch continuously attack against Israel. Now, that in it by itself is no excuse to make any sort of collective punishment. But this context is very important in order to understand that Hamas' agenda was never to build a state,
Right.
Palestinian state. Hamas agenda is ultimately to kill as many Jews as possible. It is genocidal. One should read the Hamas Covenant of 1988. It is very clear in aims, not just anti-Semitic. It is genocidal. What the Hamas aims for is to kill as many Jews as possible and to eradicate the Jewish state. This is
Professor
very
Avilov,
clearly
as you say
and
that,
that's
when you
what
talk
we're
about the
trying to
agenda of Hamas, people are also looking at the power disparity between the state of Israel and a non-state actor such as Hamas. Now, there is got to be a difference between how a non-state militant faction like Hamas operates and how Israel, which is a democracy, operates. And there has to be more accountability and more responsibility in terms of how Israel continues to engage with these other elements, and especially when it has to engage and deal with the civilian population. Do you think Israel is doing the right thing here at this moment? Because people across the world are watching images of people being, literally having entire civilian neighborhoods in which people reside being brought down as rubble because of this Israeli air raids that are taking place at this moment. Is Israel, do you think, behaving responsibly here?
Yeah, I think Israel should have done much better until now and could do still better going on. One of the main reasons, I think, that we have the Hamas in power for so long is Israel's policy. Israel was trying to, in a sense, divide and conquer between the somewhat more moderate PLO and the Hamas, especially under Netanyahu. Netanyahu has been bolstering the Hamas for years now. So we should bear in mind that Israelis have a sort of a dual front already going on. One against the Hamas, the other vis-a-vis its own government, in different ways, of course. But this has been going on.
I think that's an important point that you've raised, Professor. We're completely out of time. Thank you very much indeed for joining us from Tel Aviv and getting us those insights there. WION is now available in your country. Download the app now and get all the news on the move.